you to do is I want everybody to stand up. Stand up. Okay? And I want you to reach up to the ceiling as high as you can.
Okay.
Good. How many of you are reaching as high as you can? Are you? You're not even on your toes. Okay? All right, relax. That's a simple task. And the reason why I did that is because a lot of times there's simple things that we can do and we're asked to do, and we don't do them to the best of our ability. And what these two guys have done is if you ask them to reach up as high as they can, and I'm going to use the metaphor with football because they're football players, they found ways to reach as far as they could. They found ways, they asked questions, how can we be better? What do we need to do to get better? How are we going to get there? How are we going to make it to pro? And they did that. Just want to, maybe you guys can both share probably the biggest influences on your life.
Yeah, when I think back about my dad was an immigrant to Canada, and when we were kids, I saw how hard he worked, and he didn't get the same opportunities I got. When he was a kid, he had to take care of the cows and stuff, and when I was a kid, I got to play sports, I think, and make sure I'm always playing my best game, because it's too good of an opportunity to let it pass. And there's so many kids out there that don't have as good of an opportunity as a kid in Canada does. So we're all really blessed to live here in particular. And that's, I don't know, when I think back, and my brother's always been helping me, my dad was always trying to coach me up and help get me better and to reach higher. And yeah, those are two amazing influences in my life.
Awesome. Casey?
Yeah, kind of similar to Ante. My dad was definitely a big influence, as well as my mom. They both compete at pretty high levels as athletes themselves. So they kind of, I guess, built it into me to just work really, really hard. They were always more concerned about just the effort level I was putting in. Was I showing up on time? I'd always ask them both, how did I play? And they're more, it was never like, oh, you had a great player, a great catch here, a great tackle there. It was always, I thought you played really hard, you played well.
But was there a time when you thought, geez, this is it. I'm doing what I want to do and I'm going after it?
So when I was in grade 9, when it comes to me playing sports, I was a really late bloomer. And when I was in grade 9, I didn't play a down of football. And when I was a kid, I've been getting cut from virtually every team I tried out for. Soccer, hockey, you name it, I got cut from it, kind of thing. And when I was in grade 9, the nice thing about football is a lot of times they won't cut kids, right? Everybody's welcome to play there. And, in a football, when you're practicing, the coaches always say, make sure you're always doing things extra, finish hard and condition harder, don't always work hard. And I always thought that I was working as hard as I possibly could, but it translated to nothing. In grade 9, I didn't get a single snap, and then we were playing a team that we should have beat by a landslide. And the coach was so mad at us because we all barely won that game, and he came on the team bus afterwards. He's like, guys, this is the kind of game a guy like Leader gets in, all right? And you guys didn't do that for him. And then I kind of sat there, I was like, oh, am I that guy? And that really kind of, we still won a game. There's still reason to be happy, but it kind of really put a chip on my shoulder for the rest of my career, and I was out to, no, I'm gonna make sure that doesn't happen again. I'm gonna, that's the moment that stands out the most, because I was, at that point, I kind of turned it up even more.
To be honest, if I'm being honest, I'm probably the exact opposite as Ante. I excelled at almost everything I did athletically. Just had a knack for it. Then football came around. Like I said, my dad was coaching. He coached for a number of years, and one of the things I was able to do was go to his high school practices. used to coach Centennial Secondary School. And he had this player called Reggie Bradshaw. And he was one of the, still to this day, looking at him playing when he was at the high school age, I was just in awe of him. He ended up going to University of Louisville on a full-ride scholarship to play running back. And something just, I just loved it. I loved something about football. So I came up and my parents never pushed me to play anything. It was always, I had to come to them and ask them. So I was playing, I don't know, maybe 5, 6 sports at the time, and I was like, hey, I want to try football. Been around it long enough, watched my dad coach it long enough, been around great players like Reggie, and they're like, okay, you know, Casey, if you're going to do this, you're going to have to stop playing, you know, this sport, this sport, and this sport. And I didn't even hesitate, and I was like, yeah, that's fine. They're like, okay. So showed up first day of practice, and the thing about football is you get to wear some pads. It's unlike any other sport. You get to run full speed into somebody, knock the living life out of them. And I was really good at that. So from that point on, I think I came home, and I don't know, my mom knows the story a lot better than I do. And I was like, I know what I want to do. I know what I want to be. She's like, what do you want to be? And I was like, I want to be a professional football player. Little kid talking. I was 9 years old at the time. Okay, Casey, yes, just, you know, do your homework, go to bed. And I, probably from that point on, just had that in my head. And I was maybe too dumb, too arrogant, too naive to let other people tell me otherwise. And every day I'd show up, I'd practice hard, I'd hit people, to the point where coaches are like, you gotta take it easy because you're gonna hurt somebody on our team. So, and this is like 9 years old, right? And usually when you're 9 and you're younger, you're teaching these younger kids, a lot of them don't want to hit, or they're scared to hit. I was never like that. You tell me to run into that wall, I would have ran full speed. So I just build off that. Then when I got to high school, I had to make a decision what I was going to do. And for the first time ever, a coach was like, hey, you should play linebacker. I was like, I don't know what linebacker is. I don't know what to do. So I got thrown. I'm like, coach, what do I do? He's like, whoever has the ball, find that person and knock them out. And I was like, okay, sounds easy enough. Here we go again. First play, boom. It's the ball. It's like a run. I just come downhill, knock him. Like, got him good. I was like, geez, this is a fun position. He's like, oh, you got some instincts, right? So I would say from the age of 9, I knew what I wanted to do. When it switched was when I got to high school and I got enough feedback to make me feel like I was good enough to make it. Then after high school was done, I got recruited by a few schools, and then obviously that boosts your morale in terms of, again, re-emphasizing the fact that you can do it. And then once it got to university, it was really just my ultimate goal when I was playing university was to win games. But in the back of my head, I always knew that I was going to try and play pro, just like I did when I was 9 years old.
What's the biggest thing that you had to overcome?
Yeah, when you're playing sports and a lot of things in life, it's everything that usually comes in a process, and it requires a lot of patience. When I got to SFU, university, I was playing football and I had to redshirt. I go from being a really good high school football player and redshirting, and it really wasn't all that fun. Had to, go against the starting offense, get my butt kicked on a daily basis, and I was like, why am I doing this? But then you kind of stick with it, and you go through a bit of friction on the way, and things start coming along nicely. The next year came along, you start playing on special teams, and then you start starting on offense or defense, and it just builds and builds and builds. But that's probably the most frustrating thing about sports is you always have to kind of see a bigger picture. You can't. Sometimes it's easy to see things only 1 or 2 days in advance, but what about a year in advance? What about 5 years from now? Kind of see what the big picture is and what steps do I need to do to get there.
We're doing a lot of comparisons to football, but it's really life. It's really things that you overcome every day. Whether it's an injury, whether somebody's telling you you're no good, whether it's other people telling you you can't do something, that you'll never be anybody. You know, it's the same things. We're just kind of using football as that metaphor.
And like I said, my dad was, like, even now, there's a field named after him at Quillam for just the stuff he's done for football. But not only football, I mean, he's just a great person. He worked 2 jobs when he was a teacher. He would be teaching, so what time school started at? Like 9 o'clock roughly. He'd be teaching at 9, but he'd be bartending at nighttime. So he wouldn't get home until like 2, 3 a.m. So he wasn't running off much sleep, to say the least, but he'd still make it to each of my practices, still make it to extra work, lifts, all that stuff. So the summer going into grade 10, he passed away. It was very sudden, it was very shocking, and it was really crazy, honestly. So I would have to say, to this day, nothing that I've ever been through my entire life, and I've been through some hard things, will ever compare to that. And I experienced that when I was 16 years old. So if anything, it really just, it taught me that life was just too short. You know, you're always thinking about the future. You always think about, what am I going to do here? What am I going to do there? That sometimes you forget to live in that moment. You know, he would have just told me to keep going, keep grinding. So that's exactly what I did. But I'd say, other than that, probably the biggest eye-opener was my first training camp with the Lions. So now, after telling you guys, all I wanted to do was play professional football. And now I'm there. I'm at camp. And I'm feeling good. And I go through literally, I think it was one day of training camp, one practice. It was a long practice. The coaches are barking at you. They're saying this. You got a playbook that's this thick. You got to remember, you're living in a dorm room that's hot because it's the summertime. It's a single bed. And I remember sitting down after day 1 and being like, what have I gotten myself into? Do I really want to do this? But then you come back to things that you've learned about life, and things that you've learned, things that my dad taught me, things that my mom taught me about not giving up. And I didn't do that, and then things happened to work out. But you know, it's the weird thing about life, and I don't claim to know it all, because I definitely don't. And I don't think anybody should ever claim to know it all, because then you stop growing. Is that a lot of times life sucks. As you guys will learn, there's so many things that you have to fight through to get going, to get going, to get going. And like Ante said, like, we had it pretty good when we were kids. You know, we grew up here, grew up in a great, you know, diverse country with a lot of opportunity, which not everybody gets, you know? And we're still telling you that life is tough, right? It's about what you do after those tough things. It's about what you do when that hits. What did I do when my dad passed away? Life is gonna suck at some point. So when it does suck, it's about what you do in that situation. That is really what determines how you're gonna let it affect you. Are you gonna turn a negative to a positive? Or are you gonna let that negative thing bring you even lower and make it even bigger negative in the grand scheme of things?
That's tough. Those are tough moments. What about the best moment? Best moments.
Well, my first touchdown with the Stamps, that was a good feeling. When I got my university degree, that was a lot of fun too. We talk a lot about the toughness, but fruits will emerge from those hard times, right? There's a lot to gain. You meet friends like Casey. That's probably my favorite thing about sports, is meeting the people that I did, all the close friends I had. And yeah, there's so much to look forward to when you get involved and committed to something. When you're with a team, or if you're by yourself and you find a goal and you're committed to it and you finally get to it, it's very satisfying. But then you realize, I could push even more, maybe I could get something even greater. But there's good to come from facing adversity at some point.
I think about it, obviously, in athletic-wise, and when we were playing at SFU, we weren't the best team. So I remember this was our second year, and we had lost every game since I've been there. And I can't remember, or we were playing Dixie State at home, and we went into a triple overtime game, and we ended up winning. And I play on defense, and they scored like 50-something points, but it didn't matter because we won the game. And just that moment, you were there.
I was watching.
You were there.
Yeah.
But it again comes to that first season was just crap. You know, losing every game, getting pummeled, showing up, putting your pads on, almost to the point knowing you're going to go out there and just get stomped. But then it's all worth it for that one game or that one moment. And I remember we scored, and everybody just rushed the field. You know, I cried, like that emotion, because you put so much into it. And when you get that reward, like he's saying, that it's just such a good feeling. It really can't be reproduced in any other way.